Thank you very much for joining me. We're here as part of the INWED 2021 celebrations. The theme this year is Engineering Heroes, and you've been nominated by your colleagues as being an engineering hero, so congratulations. Perhaps we could kick off by you telling me a little bit about your area of work and what it is that you do.
Sure. So yes, I work in forensic science, and forensic science is one of those really interesting areas. We've seen huge growth and progress in the last 15 years or so with being able to use the emerging new technologies that are coming through to better detect trace materials, whether those are physical materials or digital materials, to help reconstruct crimes. But it's also one of those areas that's quite challenging. It's got a lot of challenges. So what we've seen is that whilst our ability to detect materials has gone through the roof, it's really, really great. We're also seeing challenges around what does it mean when we find that piece of evidence. So if we've got, say, a gunshot residue particle on your hands or on your jacket, we don't just need to know that that is gunshot residue, we need to know how did it get there, and when did it get there. So did you fire a gun? Is that how you got the gunshot residue on you? Or did you get it by shaking hands with somebody who maybe did, or even picking up those particles somewhere a little bit random, like a grab rail on a bus? And also, not only how did it get there, but when did it get there? So you might well have fired a gun, but did you fire it yesterday when the crime happened, or did you fire it last week? And those are the sort of questions that have really troubled forensic science, I think, because we haven't had the data always that we need to be able to answer how and when did something get to where we find it. So that's what we're doing at UCL. We're really looking at trying to make sure all of our research is addressing real world challenges. And so thinking about those two areas, first of all, can we get an evidence base to really ensure that we've got a good scientific foundation to be able to answer those how and when questions, but also how can we better understand the people that are involved? So how do scientists engage with evidence? What does the context that they're in, how does that impact the decisions that they make, and how are decisions ultimately reached? And all of that obviously comes together into making sure that we know better.
Could you perhaps tell me how your work advances or supports one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
Sure, yes. So I think probably forensic science really, I think it underpins quite a few depending on how you look at it. But the key one, I think, would be the 16th one on peace, justice, and strong institutions. And I think what we see there really is this very interesting way of thinking about how science can engage with the justice system, and having really good science with a strong foundation is really, really critical. But it's also, with an engineering perspective, making sure that that science is considered with the people that are involved. So not just the scientists who are doing that great science, but also the really key people who are involved in the whole forensic science and justice system. So investigators, lawyers, those who are making policy and making decisions in that space, and also critically just members of the public, because it's members of the public who make up juries. And I think what's really interesting when you think about forensic science in that more sustainable development context is it really opens up some really interesting avenues for research that we're thinking about a lot. One of them would be, ensuring that we've got equity in terms of the access to forensic science for both prosecution and defence. Another would be, how can we be working within our societies to ensure that there is trust in the science that's being used in the justice system, and trust in the scientists who are delivering that. So it speaks to quite a few of the different areas, I think, within those sustainable development goals.
It does, thank you. So your whole job sounds really amazing to me. Do you have a favourite part?
I think the thing that I love about the role that I have is that I'm working in a very interdisciplinary space. And that means that you're constantly confronted with the gaps and things that we don't know. And when you've got that happening, you've got opportunities very regularly to bring people together who've got different backgrounds, different ways of thinking about problems and thinking about challenges. So it's different disciplines, it's different sectors, whether that's sort of business or the creative world. And when you do that, it really creates opportunities to think outside the box and to think differently about things. So I think that's something that I love. I love learning about how different approaches, different fields, different people come to different challenges, and how we can find solutions that maybe other people haven't come to before. And I think the research group that I have as well really encapsulates that. Everyone in the group has different backgrounds, they've got different primary disciplines, but everybody's working on challenges that have an impact in the real world.
So yeah, the theme this year is engineering heroes. Do you yourself have an engineering hero? Is there somebody or something that inspired you to want to become an engineer?
Yeah, what inspired me to really go into this area was maybe not a person, but it was a specific case. And it was a case where the charge was murder, and the verdict rested on the science evidence that was presented during that case. And what became apparent was that assumptions had been made about that evidence, and it was those assumptions that led to the evidence being misinterpreted and ultimately miscarriage of justice. And so what struck me at that point was that actually we could address those assumptions, we could address the gaps that led to those assumptions, and that meant that we could reduce the chance of evidence being misinterpreted, which would reduce the chance of a miscarriage of justice. So I think that was a real motivator at the beginning of the journey for me. I suppose in terms of an engineering hero, does Einstein count in terms of he's often attributed with saying insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think that's something that inspires me today. Forensic science is in a really incredible place, but it's also plagued by a lot of the challenges that it's had for the last 15, 20 years. And actually, if we can bring that sort of engineering mindset, that sort of bring it out to looking at things at the systems level, that actually opens up opportunities to think about doing things differently, and to breaking out of that cycle and actually making breakthroughs that we need to make things better.
Right, so Einstein and justice, two big ones. Fantastic. So yes, obviously we're here to celebrate women in engineering. I just wondered if there would be any advice that you would give to a young woman today who wanted to go into a STEM-related field.
I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was don't let a fear of failure stop you doing things. You often don't know what you're really good at until you get out of your comfort zone and put yourself in a position where you try something that you haven't done before. And the worst thing that can happen is that something doesn't work out. And often that is something that then is an opportunity to really learn something either about yourself or about the situation. And it almost always brings you through a lot stronger. So don't let fear of failure hold you back. The second one that I would say is that success really just happens to people. Generally speaking, people are helped and people are encouraged. So find that thing, that topic, that issue that gives you real energy, and then find the people who inspire you, who can give you advice, who can give you feedback, and who can help you as you make that journey.
That is sage advice indeed. Thank you very much, and thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you so much.